Well, here we are again. We tried this one other time, but due to technical difficulties, I'll just leave it at that, of no fault of my own, of course, my own responsibility. We were able to do this again, but actually I find that this is going to even be better because we had that time to discuss. And so who I'm with today is Nikki, Velez, Alfonso, however you say that. She's a mental health counselor, licensed mental health counselor, among many other things in her life, wife, mother, working in numerous aspects at Wellspring, a wonderful counseling center that we in a way partner with because we've had clients that have attended there and so forth, because this is a crucial part, especially coming out of this pandemic. And I really want to jump in because we're keeping these short and intriguing. And so when we talked before, you mentioned something really remarkable, I thought, which was the statistical idea behind how long the pandemic will last, roughly, at least we think, and then how long the effects from mental health will last. Can you kind of reiterate that for us?
Yes, so physically, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Mentally, the numbers are saying that it'll take till 2024 for there to be resolved to the mental health pandemic that is going to kind of come out and is coming out due to what we've been going through because of COVID-19. So we're in this for the long haul, a lot of suffering going on right now. And so, yeah, it's big. And I think we need to make everybody aware that it's happening and that we need to help each other right through it.
Right. Yeah. And it's affecting all different strata of ages, right?
Yes, everyone. I mean, we're all affected. There's definitely severity wise, there's a long range of that. But no matter if you are, okay, in the sense that you still have your job, you can work from home, right? There's still stressors that come from that, right? And being at home with your kids, the kids going to school from home. But then if you lose your job, that's huge, right? I mean,
Yes.
how do I put food on the table? So these are just different, ranges of what people are going through right now.
So those ranges, which are pretty remarkable, and the adaptation and resilience that you have to kind of develop, but as well as how are preschool children handling it? How are children in grade school handling it? How are high school and college age, and then young working adults with kids, and then how about seniors and the more isolated kind of, so you have not only the circumstances, but you have the stratification of ages and how that affects you psychologically.
And how each of them is being affected. Of course, the lack of social interaction. We are social beings. We need to be interacting with people. If our numbers of loneliness, which is, it shows that our numbers of loneliness, 80% of people are lonely. I mean, that's kind of,
staggering.
Yeah. But then that's before a pandemic. And then there's a pandemic. So, I mean, can you imagine those numbers and how people are feeling super detached, isolated, And when we talk about loneliness, we're talking about lack of connection, right? So it's more difficult at times for different groups of people to connect to each other because of these limits,
Right.
So that's happening too. The rates of loneliness are very, very high.
And you had said last time that loneliness is not a proximity issue solely, right?
Correct.
Like you could be in the same house with a family. And actually, I would say I've had personal experiences where one of I don't have teenagers anymore. They're all grown at this point. But when one was a teenager, he felt that dramatically, but yet he was living in the house with us all.
Right. So it's not about proximity. It's about emotional connection. Do you understand what I'm going through? Do I understand what you're going through? Can I be helping you feel any better during this time? Can I be can I give you my ear so I could listen to you and be there for you? So it's again, there's a lot of marriages out there that are very lonely because they're not providing that for each other. And so, it's about connection and emotional connection rather than physical connection, if you will. You
And
know?
my assumption would be, since I'm not a mental health counselor, although I deal with so many mental health issues related to, well, you can see concussion, and over here is,
Yes.
anxiety, depression in teens. These were all, headline magazine covers at one point. But I would think that it's inherently more difficult for parents to be the source of that with a teen, or just because of the parental relationship, whether it be, comment on that.
Yes. So, in the teenage years, the teenagers start kind of pulling away from parents, right? They're individualizing themselves, finding their identity apart from their parents. And so they look a lot to their friends.
Yes.
For that connection, right? And so we have some kids right now aren't going to school, aren't connecting in that way. Thankfully, the technology is helping in that sense.
Yes.
We'll talk about social media not being very helpful another time, but the fact that they can text each other and be, connected is great. But so parents are, not as engaged, and I don't want to say that because a lot of parents are engaged, but
Yes.
maybe are not connecting to what is important to the teen, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And always my recommendation with that is if your teen likes to play video games, you're gonna know about video games and you're gonna play some video games, like it or not, right? You gotta kind of meet them where they're at, right? And kind of
Good point.
engage and be interested in what they're into, whether you like it or not. That is that's what they're into. Let's learn. Let's be involved, right? And so I think that's something that I think it's huge. And I don't have teenagers yet. We're getting there. We're at 12. But I hope that I can get in there and say, okay, show me, and this is what I'm doing now. Show me what you're playing. Tell me, we play it sometimes, that kind of thing, so that they can share that stuff. And I can still be an open possibility for them to come to, right? Yeah. I don't want them to shut me down because when they say something to me, I'm like, oh, I don't care. That's not, like whatever. I leave my door open. We got to leave our doors open for our teenagers.
Yes, yeah.
They need us more than ever right now. They're really struggling, the teenagers, for sure.
I got something out of that, actually, so thank you. At the same time, I would balance that in terms of a parent who might listen to this and say, but we know that, for a Christian or someone in the faith, we'll say, that there's a principle operating, and the principle is that you're not a prophet in your own home. Now, I don't mean that literally, because that's not the indication, but you have to understand many times you'll be the one who will need to, you can be open, and you should be. This is a good learning for me, but maybe your role is going to be to pray and just to be there.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes. That's key. I mean, we got to be praying every day, all the time, for our children and their decisions and what they, what kind of path they're heading on.
You might like this also. It recently came up in some conversation, is that many times we pray and we target a person with our prayer, so to speak. I'll say it that way. Maybe it's for a positive outcome, or at least what we believe to be, but it may be more preferable to God to target his interest for them. Now you say, well, how do you know what his interest is? That's why you need to be close to God. Because many times we're praying for something like, give them this, or give them that spouse or that companion, and that's not, I'm not going to say it's not wrong, but we want to really follow the Lord inwardly as to know his interest for them, that their eyes of their heart would be enlightened. And of course, this I'm speaking to people who have a faith connection, right? So we're saying, praying for God's will to be done in their life. Lord, your will to be done in their life. So I want to move on from that.
And that allows us to release control to someone we know has greater interest for them than we do.
That's true, right? We know that.
We know that, and we can't take his place, which we want to.
We always do.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I think I always say our default switch is we're going to be the ones in control. We might say this with our mouth, but we know that this is how we are, our default switch. So we have to be intentional to look to him, right? To say, okay, it can be multiple times a day. It's not like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
It's daily.
Ongoing, absolutely.
That's right. So we live by him. So I have something here that I want to share with you, and I like to bring out whenever I speak with a colleague, something that is a research-based component. And this is about
Yes.
brain activation imaging in emotional decision-making and mental health. Brain activation, so measuring. So my side, my role, I'm dressed like this is because we measure the brain activity. We measure it with brain mapping, as you know, and then we provide different forms of therapy. We measure it with eye tracking. I talked with Dr. Claren, an optometrist, about that, which he does as well. And why do we measure these things? Because we can get excellent information about the health of someone's brain and their mental health from that. So I'll read you one sentence here, and I like your perspective on this. From a neurologic perspective, the brain is a pattern recognition and decision-making machine. Isn't that interesting? From a neurologic, from a hardware perspective. So I like to say, you work with the software, we work with the hardware. Actually,
Yes.
that's my wife's phrase, so I'm borrowing it from her. Software is related to that, what you do in that cognitive work realm, and then hardware is related to what we do. So the brain is a pattern recognition and decision-making machine. Now we know it's not just that, but if you boil it down to machinery, and then this sentence, and this is the last one I'll read, neuroscience provides a unique perspective on human behavior and mental health. Neuroscience. So, you know, people come to you, people come to me, they come to me and they have XYZ, and part of the XYZ is they're dealing with depression or anxiety. And I'm looking at not the structure, but the function of their brain. And then, you know, trying to marry that with therapy or help matched with people from Wellspring or other counseling or EMDR or what we call top-down therapies.
Yes, yes. And so what I'd like to kind of add to that is trauma can change the brain.
Surely, yes.
That's why we do what we do, right? Because trauma can actually change the brain structure. Well, not structure as bones, right? But
functionality,
yes.
Plasticity.
And so that's why therapy work is so crucial.
Right.
In particular, we like to focus on EMDR, particularly for that, because the pathways have been stuck, right? We've kind of gotten stuck because something really bad has happened. Right. And so in order to kind of release, we do have to process through that. And so then we kind of open those pathways again, and they're not as, you know, you don't feel all those feelings that you felt in that moment of trauma. They're not just as huge as they were then. Right.
Very good. Yeah, I really like that. And we've referred numerous people for work with EMDR, and I know that that's something that you do and that's provided there at Wellspring. So very exciting. So I want to just mention here as we're about to close, you had mentioned before TLC.
Yes. So I came up with this little acronym for, you know, looking back and looking forward during the time, you know, during this pandemic time, the last 9 to 10 months, how do we move forward? Looking to see what did we learn, or, you know, what are we thankful for? And how do we move forward better? Right. And so the T stands for thankfully, looking forward, thankfully, right? Let's get in a state of gratitude, because we can all look at all the bad things. We all have bad things that have happened. We all have bad things that we're struggling with, that are hard, that are challenging, right? But if we get into a mindset of, okay, let's just focus on, for this moment, for this kind of quiet time moment, all the things that I'm really grateful for, that I'm able to spend time with my family, that I'm able to still work, that I'm able to, whatever it is, you know, there's so many. I did this with my kids. We did an ABCs of Thanksgiving. Great idea. The amount of things that we were recognizing, we were so thankful for, was beautiful. It was really a beautiful thing that we did as a family. So thankfully. Learning. What am I learning? What did I learn about myself, about, you know, what I want, about my priorities, right? Because one thing I learned, and I'll be very transparent here, it took me about a month when I was told you're going to be home all the time. It took me about a month for kind of snap out of it and be like, okay, I think I can do this.
Wow.
You know, I was unmotivated. Didn't know where to start. I didn't know, you know, it was, how do I handle the kids home, doing school? I mean, it was a challenge for me, and it took me about a month. And so I learned that when there's change in my life, it's going to take me about a month. And it's okay because I'm going to come out stronger. I'm going to come out. I'm going to do good. You know, I'm going to survive this. So what did you learn? Negative things, positive things, right?
That's
Kind
right.
of go soul searching. And then the last thing is to care, or how do you care and cope with yourself and with the situation? And the key here is, what have I been doing? Has it been good for me, or has it not? And you have to be really honest with yourself during this moment. And am I drinking more? That's a problem. Am I binge eating? Maybe that's a problem. Why am I doing that? So, or am I exercising more? Awesome. That's a good one, to be. So just looking at what are you doing to cope? Is it helping? Are you isolating? Are you trying to stay social? Those kinds of things. These things are going to help us get better, help us be in a better state of mind. So TLC, be thankful, do your thankful list. L, what have you learned? And C, how are you coping and caring for yourself? And if this is a hard thing for you to do, then maybe you should consider seeing someone through this time. We all need help. It's okay. It is normal to need help. And I want to really, emphasize that. It's okay. It's normal. We're all kind of not okay. So.
Very good. Excellent. So we're going to wrap here. We're going to come back. You want to join us for the next talk where we're going to talk a little bit more about trauma and the different ways of understanding that, and then different opportunities to help someone come out of that and recover. So thanks so much, Nikki.
Awesome. That was awesome.